Hi friends, it's Terry Gaines. In this video, I'm going to give you all the details to create this Accordion Fun Fold card. The card I'm going to create in the video is using the same stamp set and tools, but using different color cardstock and designer series paper. And when I'm all done assembling the card for you, I'm going to share additional cards created with different product. So to get started, I'm going to talk about the embellishment for the card. I use the Dainty Delight stamp set, which is in Stampin' Up's January through April 2023 mini catalog. I stamped this image and cut it out with the dies that you can purchase that coordinate. And then I stamped it in Memento ink, and then I colored it in with the Stampin' Blends. For the lighter purple here, I used the light Fresh Freesia. For the darker purples, I use the dark Highland Heather. For the yellow, I use the dark Daffodil Delight. For all of the leaves, I use the dark Granny Apple Green. And then I took the bullet point of the light Granny Apple Green, and then I followed all the stems. So that's how I colored in the image. And then I already have dimensionals on the back of it. Dimensionals are very strong and add dimension to your project, so I did the prep work for that. The bow is using the 1/4 inch crinkled ribbon in the Stampin' Up's annual catalog. And then what I also did was I cut out 2 white banners, basic white banners, using the stylish shape dies. I used this banner right here. And one of them I stamped with the Gorgeous Grape ink using a sentiment from the Go-To Greetings, a happy birthday sentiment. This is in the annual catalog. And then to stamp the inside sentiment, I have that all set aside here to do that during the process. And I'm using a stamp from Season of the Chic stamp set. It says, "Wishing you the best birthday ever." So let's talk about the cardstock. So for my card base, I have a 8 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of cardstock. I'll score that in a moment. And this is Highland Heather. For Cardstock Layer 1, I have 2 Gorgeous Grape. They are both 2 7/8 by 5 1/4. You need 2 of those. Then for Cardstock Layer number 2, you need quantity 2. These are 2 5/8 by 5. I'm using basic white. One of them I have texturized with the Painted Texture 3D folder. I placed it in the folder, ran it through my die cutting machine and texturized that. And the other one is going to be for the other, they're going to be layered together like that. And then Designer Series paper is a decorative piece, and this is 1 1/4 by 5. I am using a piece from one of the 6x6 Designer Series paper assortments. These are in the annual catalog. You get all 10 colors in a family, and I'm using the Brights. Well, this might be in the Regals. I don't remember if the Gorgeous Grape is in the Brights or the Regal, but I have that in the Gorgeous Grape. So what I'm going to do is score the cardstock. I'm going to bring in the Simply Scoring tool to do that. You can use your paper trimmer with the scoring blade or the Simply Scoring tool. And I like to use the larger of the 2 ends here on the stylus, and I want to score the first score line at 2 1/8. Then the next one is 3 1/8, then 5 1/8, and then 6 1/8. So I'm going to set that aside. Before I move this out of the way, while I have it here, I'm going to use it for my alignment. What I want to do, and what you'll want to do when you recreate this card, is put your Designer Series paper on the right hand side of the cardstock layer number 2 that's not texturized. And because it's the same height, I'm going to use the Simply Scoring tool for my alignment. So what I like to do is put my adhesive on the back of the Designer Series paper, and then I put this right in the corner, right against the wall. And then I can put this Designer Series paper against the wall and then let it fall into place. That helps me get that nice squared alignment for adhering that. So now I can move the Simply Scoring tool out of the way. We have our paper scored. Let's go ahead and assemble these. Now, if you are following along on the video to create this card, you can hit the pause button if I'm going too fast for these. So what we want to do is adhere cardstock layer number 2 to cardstock layer number 1. Now I chose my color combination by how I wanted to color in the flower, and I wanted to use some of the darker colors, so that's how I picked my color choice. Most of the time I pick the designer series paper first and then pick my colors from that. And the beauty of this is you can use any designer series paper and any image. Now when I adhere these, I look at opposite corners. That way I can look for equal spacing on both sides of each corner, which means I'm looking at all 4 sides for my placement. Now when this accordion card is layered, this panel with the designer series paper is in the middle, and this is going to be the top. So for our card base, we have the score. We want this first score line to be a mountain fold. Now it doesn't matter your orientation because I designed the dimensions so the panels are equal on both sides, so you don't have to worry about keeping that straight. It's either side, but that first score line is going to be a mountain fold. Then the next one's going to be a valley fold, so mountain, valley. Then you're going to do a mountain and a valley. That's going to get your accordion shape. You do need a bone folder to help crease these. That works good to get these to crease before you assemble the panels on them. So I just like to fold that and crease this. And then, as I mentioned, the panels are the same, so you don't need to worry about orientation, but the front of the card has that first panel, the first score line being the mountain fold, so make sure that's the top of the card. Now I have been making these with the basic white cardstock, which means you can sign your card, but since I used a colored cardstock, I have a dimension here. I'll include it in the comment section of the video and on my blog post and in the PDF. I created this additional piece of basic white that is going to be where you sign your card. So what I want to do is adhere this with my adhesive. I want to put this one on first, and I'm going to turn this. I turn it this way because I have a better view of the 3 sides if I have it rotated this direction. And what I'm going to do is look for equal spacing on the top and the bottom, or the 2 ends, which is the top and the bottom, and this side. So I got that placed here. That's where you'll sign the card. This panel gets adhered just to this inside, the center accordion fold. And then what you want to do is make sure that you have no exposed adhesive hanging over. So how to do that is to turn this over and put the adhesive behind the part that does not have the designer series paper. So I'm going to put it on this side. So I'm going to flip this over, put a strip of designer, or I'm sorry, a strip of adhesive down here. And because we don't want it to be exposed, instead of guessing where to put it here, I'm going to place my adhesive right along this edge here, not to the top or to the bottom, because that's going to be exposed. My adhesive's here, so I'm going to flip this over, and with my fingers holding this flat, I can hold this card up. I can look for equal spacing on the, which will be the top and the bottom and the right side, and then place that down, and that way it adheres just to this panel. So I've got that adhered. Now it works best not to decorate this before you place it, because this way you don't have to worry about rotation. But if you use designer series paper with an orientation, just make sure you're adhering it in the right orientation. So now what I want to do is make sure adhesive is not exposed here. So I'm going to flip this over, put my adhesive along this side, and then just on this fold, not all the way to the bottom or top, because that's going to be exposed. Now my adhesive's here, so I'm going to flip this over. I'm using my fingers to hold this flat while I can hold this up on an angle so my adhesive's not touching until I get it aligned. Before I commit to it, I'm going to make sure it lines up along here also. and that's going to get my accordion fold for me. And guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to stamp this part right here. But if I fold this flat like this, you know, my videos are unedited, and I have done this for a couple classes, in-person classes, and one of them I forgot to do this, but you can fold this over. We want to stamp our sentiment on just this panel. It does work best to do that before you assemble it. Now this is going to be hidden, so that's where your inside sentiment is for your card. So as I mentioned, sometimes I forget to do that, but do that ahead of time. It's much easier. And also what happens is if you happen to make a mistake, you're not taking that whole panel off and redoing it. But as I mentioned, my videos are unedited, so we'll just continue. So this is the card. Now what I'm going to do is attach this element here, and this element is going to stay within that panel border. But if you have an element that hangs over, that still works. I'm going to show you a couple samples that have the element that goes over the panel, which I'm trying to say is it's bigger than this panel. What you'd want to do is make sure it doesn't go beyond this edge, but it's okay to hang over on that side of the card. But this one is going to stay within this panel size. So I'm going to place this down. I took the dimensional backings off. Now this happy birthday banner is going to hang over the edge a little bit. And because it does, I don't want adhesive here, but also this is the back side. What I'm going to do is take this blank label and put backsides to backside and just attach that. It's going to do two things for me. It's going to hide the back of this banner, but it's also going to add some more stability to this. I'm just using the basic white cardstock, which is not as thick as the thick basic white. So that's just going to add some stability to that banner. Now, as I mentioned, I don't want it to hang over the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put my fingers here. That's going to say I'm going to go about that space up. I'm going to bring my dimensionals in, and I'm going to place my dimensionals right on my card panel, take the backings off, and then what I can do is I can place the banner right on top of that. That way I don't have exposed adhesive and it hangs over a little bit, and I think just that adds a nice element to the card. I pre-made the bow, and I'm going to attach that with the mini glue dot. These mini glue dots are very strong. You can just bring whatever you want to adhere, whether it's a decorative embellishment or the knot of the bow. And then I just make sure that I have no exposed adhesive, wrap it underneath, and I'm going to attach the bow right here. And that is the finished card. So as I mentioned, it is the same as this card, but just using different papers. This paper is from the Dainty Flowers in the Stampin' Up! January through February celebration brochure, but it's the very same stamp sets, a different stamp set for that happy birthday. And then I have one more using that very same product, but the paper is from the Country Gingham, which is in the new mini catalog that starts January 5th. And then I just use some different color blends. This card is using the Awash in Beauty Designer Series paper, which is in the annual catalog. This is one of the background pieces, and this is one of the elements you can fussy cut. What I like to do when I fussy cut is to layer it on the basic white, because then it camouflages any imperfections on the cutting. I have one using one of the pieces of paper from the Day at the Farm Designer Series paper. This paper sheet has a whole scene on it, but what you can do is cut those panels down. The sentiments are from the coordinating stamp set in the mini catalog. Then I have a couple cards using the Favored Flowers Designer Series paper. This is a celebration offering. It's free with a $50 purchase during celebration, which starts January 5th. This is the Designer Series paper. The flower design is cut from a Designer Series paper, and it has both these two colors on the paper. So I created one card using the Blackberry Bliss and the basic black. and then this is using the petal pink and the basic black. So those are using the same designer series paper with just 2 different color schemes. And then the last sample I have to share is from the Dainty Flower designer series paper, also a celebration offering during the January through February celebration, and this is using one of the prints. And then I will tell you that I created this slightly smaller, so I basically narrowed it so I could work with the panel that's on that designer series paper. And then as you can see, I have designer series paper going here. I've just modified my papers a little bit to work with the designer series paper. So I hope you enjoyed this fun fold. If you go to the comments, or not the comment section, but the text section of this video, there'll be a direct link to my blog post where you can download the PDF where I have some photos of these cards. There'll be this link to this video so you can rewatch that, and I have the dimensions for that. I will include the dimensions for this back piece, or that additional white piece, and I'll mention that as being optional. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to have you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the red box under the video, then select the red bell to be notified when I upload new videos. And again, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this project. Take care and happy creating.